Have you ever had the pleasure of travelling on a bus, wrestled your way through a crowd to get on, then jostled and jockeyed for a seat, only to be squashed up against fellow passengers when you finally got one? And that's all before you set off to enjoy an uncomfortable and noisy ride. If the answer is yes, then you'll be interested to know that this is nothing new, for history reveals that public transport has always been full of trials and tribulations, but also many an anecdote and funny story. Time passes, technology changes, but the people themselves were not so different in the past as some might imagine. Take the Victorians, for example. The horse-drawn omnibus, the forerunner of the modern bus familiar to us today, bus being an abbreviation of the Latin omnibus, was a common and cheap means of transport for the masses in a time before the motor car. The streets were crammed with double-deckers. The outside upper deck was a cheaper fare. And old photographs frequently show just how big a role they had in keeping a metropolis like London and its people moving. Today, we take a journey on one of London's penny omnibuses in a first-hand account by the Victorian author Charles Manby Smith. Find out what strange characters you would meet amongst the crowd, the curious sights you might see, hear and smell as you made your way through some of the city's famous streets, never really stopping, not even to allow passengers to get on or off safely, and discover that badly behaved conductors might leave you stranded on a whim, whether you'd paid your penny fare or not. Before we move on, if you're interested in history like this, and you want to find out more about what life was really like for people in the past, please consider subscribing for more content. If you'd like to support what we make for you, check out the description for links to ways you can help us continue bringing the past alive. We are going to take a ride in a penny omnibus. Here we are at Holborn Hill. The omnibus, a white one, has just turned round, and we are the first to jump in and ensconce ourselves in a further corner. Now we can ride to Tottenham Court Road for a penny, or to Edgware Road, if we choose, for twopence. We are hardly seated when an elderly dame literally lunettes in, heaving a large brown paper parcel, almost as big as a pannier, a bag carried either side of a horse or donkey, and a crushed and semi-collapsed bandbox, a lightweight circular box for carrying a hat, which she quietly arranges on the cushioned seat, as though she had engaged that whole side to herself. She is followed in an instant by an elderly and portly figure in patched boots and a well-worn dingy great-coat, who takes the right-hand door corner, where he sits with clasped horny hands, nursing a corpulent umbrella, upon the handle of which he rests his unshaven chin, as with rueful face he peers over the low door. Bang! Goes something on the roof. The explosion startles him from his contemplations, and causes him to poke out his head, which is instantly drawn in again, as the conductor opens the door and keeps it open while a living tide rushes in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No more room here, conductor. Full here. Full inside, roars the conductor in reply, but we don't move on yet. There is a vision of muddy high-lows, corduroy garments, and coat-tails, clambering up consecutively in the rear under the guidance of the conductor, and making a deafening uproar on the roof in the ceremony of arranging themselves upon what has not been inappropriately styled the knife-board. "All right," bursts involuntarily from the lips of the conductor, as the last pair of bluchers disappears above our heads. Now the bus gets under way, and we begin to look around us, and find that we form one of a very mixed company indeed. Opposite us sits the old lady with the bandbox and monster bundle. By her side is a very thin journeyman baker in his oven undress, and next to him a young man carrying a blue bag, and wearing a diamond ring on his little finger, a pair of false brilliants, gems such as diamonds, by way of shirt studs, and a violet-coloured necktie. To his left is the wife of a mechanic, carrying a capless, bald-headed fat baby in her arms. The baby sputtering, staring, and kicking in delight, and stretching out its little puddings of fingers to reach the diamond-ringed hand that grasps the blue bag. Next to the mother of the baby is a blue jacket, a regular tar, a sailor, who, it would seem, has entered the omnibus for the sake of enjoying a turn-in, and is endeavouring to compose himself to sleep. Next to him is our friend with his companion, the stout umbrella, which he still hugs with undiminished affection. Of the party sitting on our side we cannot give so good an account, by reason of a very voluminous widow, weighing, at a rough guess, some 20 stone, who has almost eclipsed our view in that direction, and whose presence oppresses us with an idea of the cheapness of land carriage in the present day, estimating it by weight. We stop for half a minute at the top of Chancery Lane to put down the owner of the blue bag. Somebody too drops from the roof, but another climbs up, and another rushes in as we are again getting under way. And, still full, we proceed onwards. We drop 3 or more of our company at the corner of Red Lion Street, and among them, greatly to the relief of the horses and the writer, the ponderous widow. Now we find ourselves sitting next to a shoemaker who is taking home a pair of new boots of his own manufacture. We can tell that much by the channels cut by countless wax ends through the hardened skin of his little fingers. Next to him are a couple of boys, who, we suspect, have no other business to follow just now than to enjoy a penny ride for the pleasure of walking back again. We are soon in New Oxford Street, and now the elderly and portly man whom we first noticed lifts his corpulent umbrella carefully out of the omnibus, and disappears in the shop of an advertising tailor, probably in search of a new greatcoat, which indeed it is high time that he had provided. Nobody gets up in place of the last few departures, for a good and sufficient reason, namely, that we are approaching the end of the pennyworth, and that all who go beyond Tottenham Court Road must pay a double fare. Now the conductor pops his head in at the window, and, to save time, collects the pence of all the penny passengers, so that there will be nothing to do beyond letting them out when we stop. At Tottenham Court Road all the passengers alight but ourselves, even the old lady emerging from behind her band-boxes and walking off towards St. Giles. But new customers are waiting, and in less than 2 minutes we are crammed again with a new cargo as various as the preceding one, and on we roll towards the Edgware Road. We set out with 12 insiders, and we stop at the end of our route with but 4, and yet the conductor has taken 22 fares. By an accurate calculation, without actually pulling up to a standstill once on the way. The necessity of dispatch is recognized by both parties to the contract, and passengers paying their money before they alight are seen to step out while the vehicle goes on at an easy pace, and others clamber in or on to the roof in the same way. We have got to the end of the journey, and nothing better offering on our return, we ascend to the roof, and ride back on the outside to our starting point. There is a great deal of the world to be seen in the inside of an omnibus, as those who are accustomed to ride in them very well know, but there is still more to be seen on the outside. The knife-board, that is, the longitudinal seat which stretches from end to end of the roof, is a very favourite position with a numerous class of the metropolitan world. It is sufficiently far above the noise of the wheels to allow of undisturbed conversation, and is a point of eminence from which everything going forward, below, and around can be plainly seen. We have ourselves made from this point some curious surveys of men and things which we could not possibly have made in a less elevated position, or which did not, like that, afford us an ever-moving panorama of social life and action. We were indebted to it not long ago for a series of gastronomical observations of the mode in which London tradesmen live. A view, by the way, which might have satisfied the most sceptical of the material prosperity enjoyed by that class in spite of occasional cries of bad times. Our omnibus slowly proceeded down a narrow and obstructed street. It was a warm summer's evening, between the hours of 9 and 10, and the shopmen of the district, from want of back parlours, were taking their supper in the front floor, with the windows of their apartments open. We say nothing of the garnished sirloins, parsley-decked hams, pickled salmon, and lobster salads, with cold gooseberry pies in profusion, of which we had a vision sufficiently distinct as we were carried along, having no intention of carping at the dietary of John Bull, a personification of England in political cartoons, often depicted as a stout, middle-aged and jolly country-dwelling man. Our sole comment shall be the remark of a rather hungry-looking genius in fustian, thick, rough cotton cloth, who shared the knife-board with us, whose eyes twinkled, and whose mouth visibly watered at the sight, as he exclaimed spontaneously, "Crikey, don't they do it up tidy up here?" wiping his mouth. The boorish incivility and savage behaviour of omnibus drivers and conductors was, not many years ago, the theme of universal irritation and complaint, and very justly so. At the present moment, the reverse is the case, a civil and obliging demeanour being the general characteristic of the profession. The key to the transformation is, doubtless, to be found in the fact that civility pays better than its opposite. There is still, however, room for improvement in some particulars, as the following little incident will show. Entering the other day an omnibus which, by the inscription on its side, professed to carry passengers to church, we found ourselves, while yet a quarter of a mile from the church, the solitary occupants of it. The omnibus stopped, and the conductor called upon us to alight, saying that they did not go any further. "Not go any further?" said we. "You don't pretend that I am to get out and walk a quarter of a mile in the rain?" "Don't go any further, sir." "Yes, you do. You have the name of the church painted on the side of your omnibus. You go there, certainly." "Don't go any further, sir." "Don't tell me that nonsense. You go where you profess to go, I suppose?" "Don't go any farther, sir." "But you must go further. I pay to be taken to church, and to the church I will be taken." "Don't go any farther, sir." "Then I won't get out. You may drive me back to where you took me up, and I'll pay you nothing." Conductor, slamming the door with a bang that shakes the whole fabric and bawling to the driver, "Go on to the church, gentleman won't get out." And away we drive, slashing through the mud and mire, and rolling, pitching and labouring like a vessel in a storm, until we reach the church. At last we alight, and ask the conductor why he wished to set down his passengers a quarter of a mile from their destination. "A quarter of a mile? 'Tisn't 6 yards. You likes a good penn'orth. Anyhow, you do." If we confess to the soft impeachment, we shall add but one more to the numberless illustrations of the great leading principle which governs commercial transactions in the present day.